Have you ever wished for a homemade chocolate cake mix that was just like a store-bought cake mix in taste and texture, but was a just add water mix? Not a add a half a cup of oil and 2 eggs mix, but one where those ingredients are already in there? A mix that only needs you to add water, bake, and then enjoy? Well, I've created a pantry mix using shelf-stable ingredients and freeze-dried eggs. This mix creates chocolate cupcakes that taste amazing. This is literally the perfect gift this holiday season, or pretty much anytime. I think y'all are gonna love it. Well, hi there everyone. My name is Kareth. I'm a wife, a mom, an author, and a cook. On this channel, I like to create recipes using freeze-dried food. Sometimes it's completely shelf-stable, like a meal or a mix in a jar. Other times, I combine freeze-dried with fresh, but all the time, it's delicious. I'm here to help people who have freeze-dried food on their shelves to know how to cook with it. I test out recipes so you don't have to. Welcome to the Freeze-Dried Foodie. This recipe here is one of the ones that was requested by my subscribers. I already have a recipe on my channel for a DIY yellow cake mix, and I use lard in that one for the fat. It's great. I always have loved using lard, but I had some people tell me that they don't like lard or they've never used it before. They asked me if I would consider using some shortening and if I would develop a chocolate cake mix. So I have done that. I bought some of that butter flavored Crisco. It turned out great. It was really, really yummy. I think it would be a great substitute for lard in my other recipes as well. I will put up on the screen here a list of the ingredients you'll need to make the cake. I'll put the full recipe with the exact measurements down in the description box below the video. I do that for all my videos. I give away the recipes for free, and if you want to support me, you can consider purchasing one of my cookbooks. All right, what I do first whenever I am making a DIY cake mix is I process my sugar in a food processor. And the reason being is because I like a really fine sugar for cake mixes, and I don't have fine sugar. I just have regular sugar, so I process it first, and that helps to make a fine sugar. All right, and then next I will add the rest of the dry ingredients. I've got all-purpose flour here, and I measured out 1 cup of all-purpose flour. And what I'm doing now is I'm putting 3 tablespoons of that flour back in the flour canister. And I'm going to replace those 3 tablespoons of flour with cornstarch. And the reason I do that is because this is like a little trick or a little hack for creating your own cake flour. I don't have cake flour. I don't know that a lot of people do have cake flour. You can kind of make your own cake flour with that little trick. All right, next comes the cocoa powder. Of course, you need cocoa powder to make chocolate cake. It doesn't matter what brand you use. I actually am not even using the Hershey's brand. I just like that container. That's that Ghirardelli brand that I buy, and then I put it in the Hershey's container because I like the shape of the container. The Ghirardelli comes in a bag, and I can't ever get it to reseal. So anyway, but it doesn't matter. You need to put some cocoa powder in there, and then just some baking powder, baking soda, some salt, and vanilla. Now that baking soda, it needs a little bit of acid to react with, right? Well, cocoa powder is mildly acidic, and then I'm also going to add some sour cream powder into this recipe. My regular chocolate cake recipe that I've used for years calls for sour cream. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to add some sour cream powder into this cake mix. Might as well make it taste as close as possible to my regular chocolate cake. I'm going to add some scrambled egg mix. And the instant coffee I put in here does not make the cake taste like coffee. It just makes the chocolate taste chocolatier. It brings out the chocolatiness in the chocolate. And then I'm adding a little bit of the instant pudding mix, like 1/4 cup of that mix. And it just helps make the cake really moist, add some good flavor. That's optional. You don't have to put that in there, but I've seen lots of boxed cake mixes at the store that say pudding is in the mix. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to try it. I like to pulse those dry ingredients and then add the fat. Now here comes the butter flavor shortening. And y'all, I was actually supposed to put just 1/3 of a cup in here. I mismeasured and I put that whole stick that I had left, and it was 1/2 cup. So yours is probably going to look a little bit different in the end just because I had too much of the fat that I put in here. But no worries, it still came out fine. All right, so you can go ahead and pulse that and then process it. And I did stop it a couple of times along the way and just scrape down the sides, just making sure that I got a really thoroughly mixed mix. All right, so this is what your mix should look like. And then you can just add that to a quart-sized jar. It's the equivalent of having like a boxed cake mix on your shelf. And if you decide to give this as a gift, you could write the baking instructions on the tag, put a cute little bow and some ribbon on there, and this should be good for a few months on the shelf. All right, whenever you're ready to make the cupcakes, this is going to make a dozen chocolate cupcakes. First thing you'll need to do is preheat your oven to 350 because this is all going to happen really fast. You'll get out a large bowl, empty the mix into the bowl, and then add hot water. So I just used my kettle there, and I added 1 cup of water to start with, actually, and I stir it up, and I wanted to see what the texture was like. I'm going to switch to a whisk here in just a minute to get it really nice and smooth, make sure there's no lumps in my batter. And then I just figured out, you know what? This is a little bit too thick. And so I ended up adding a couple, 2 or 3 extra tablespoons of hot water. And I'll put that in the notes below, the recipe notes. I was trying to get this to the consistency that my regular chocolate cake batter looks like. And my regular batter was just a little thinner. So I added, a little extra water. If you want to, you can even add a little bit of leftover coffee here if you want to bring out that coffee flavor. Here's an option for you. You don't have to do this, of course, but if you want to, you could let that cool for about 5 minutes and then add some chocolate chips. I don't know, like 1/2 cup or so of chocolate chips. It's really good in there. I had them and I thought, yeah, I'll give it a try. And I really liked it, but it's definitely an option. Like you don't have to do that. And if you don't let that cool down long enough, it will melt your chocolate chips, which will affect your baking. So if I were you, I would let that cool at least 5 minutes before adding those. So go ahead and fill your muffin cups. And like I said, this should give you a dozen. Now, I didn't fill mine all the way to the top. I probably put about 1/4 of a cup of batter into each of those cups. You don't want them really any fuller than that. And they need to bake for about 20 minutes in the oven. And even though they weren't full, they poof up in the oven really nicely. If you enjoy cooking with freeze-dried foods, please consider owning my cookbooks. They're both available on Amazon in paperback and as a digital download on my website, thefreezedriedfoodie.com. I'll link to both below. If you own freeze-dried food and want to be able to cook delicious meals with it, then you'll love having my cookbooks. They're loaded with completely shelf-stable meals and mixes. And although I wrote the recipes with Thrive Life ingredients in mind, you can use any brand, including home freeze-dried foods. All right, back to the recipe. Those will need to bake for about 20 minutes. Now, I pulled mine out 3 different times to do a toothpick test. I tried it at 15 minutes, 18 minutes, and then at about 20 or 21. And at about 21 minutes, that's when mine were done. The toothpick test was fine, but it did hit a chocolate chip in there, so there was a little bit of what looked like batter at the end. But they were done. Now you do need to let these cool completely on a rack, so just leave them in the cupcake tin, put those up on a rack to get some air circulation underneath there and let them cool really well. And just like any cupcake, you can't ice these while they're warm because the icing will just pool and run off. So wait till they're cool and then you can ice them however you want to ice them. I got some cream cheese and butter, cocoa powder, powdered sugar, And I even added a little bit of my extra instant pudding mix in there because I thought that would give it a really nice flavor. And then you have to add some sort of liquid to your frosting. So I added some half and half, but if you want these kind of mocha-like, you could add leftover coffee. It's totally up to you. Frost these however you want to frost them. But I just think they turned out wonderful. And the most important thing is the taste, right? Taste is paramount. And y'all, these taste fantastic. They're delicious. The chocolate is really nice and rich and deep. It's not overly sweet. Now, I did put a cup of sugar in here, but it's not overly sweet. In fact, my daughter said, Mom, these aren't very sweet. You might want to add some more sugar. But we figured out like when you add the frosting to them, I think they're perfect. And I don't like a chocolate cake that's overly sweet. So anyway, these are not too sweet, and paired with the frosting, they're fantastic. They are so tasty. Just look at the metals here. These have the texture of a boxed cake mix. There's a little bit of bounce to them when you put a fork in them. Real quick, let me just review why we all like boxed cake mixes, okay? A boxed cake mix is going to be consistently good. Like your results are always going to be the same, and you want consistency in a mix, right? So this has that. A boxed cake mix is very convenient because you can keep it stored on your pantry shelf and it's ready for whenever you need it. So this mix, I mean, it's the same idea. It's ready for whenever you need it. But unlike a boxed cake mix that needs you to add the oil, add the vanilla, add the eggs, all you have to make this is water. So I think this is even better. And y'all saw the ingredients I put in here. There weren't really any suspicious ingredients. I mean, you know, if you don't like shortening, then a little cleaner ingredient would be to use lard. If you don't want to use the instant chocolate pudding mix, just leave that out. It's fine. But I mean, overall, it's a cake mix that has a little bit of a cleaner ingredient list. There are no artificial preservatives or stabilizers or emulsifiers in here. You could definitely make this into a regular chocolate cake. I did, it was like a recipe and a half in order to make these 2 layers for the layered cake here. It tastes amazing. It's so yummy. I made that for my husband's office mates. I sent that to work with him. But yeah, I just really wanted to develop a recipe that was 1 dozen chocolate cupcakes that could all fit into 1 quart-size mason jar. And that was a just add water mix. And that is exactly what I did. This is probably the 5th iteration of this recipe. I continued to tweak things, change things around until I got just the right taste, until I got just the right texture, and until it fit into 1 jar. So anyway, I'm excited to bring this to you today. I hope you try this. I hope you love it. And I hope you let me know about it in the comments. I have a scripture verse of the day for you. John 10, verses 11 and 14. So let me read 14 first. It says, I am the good shepherd. I know my own and my own know me. And verse 11 says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. Such great verses. All right, guys, thank you for spending part of your day with me. I really appreciate you. I hope you have a blessed day, a wonderful weekend, and until next time, y'all take care and keep thriving.